Welcome to Medieval History Channel 97, where the echoes of the past come alive. Step into the world of knights, castles, and forgotten legends as we journey through time together. Let history speak. Gaius Caligula, the Mad Emperor of Rome. On a warm August day in 12 CE, a child was born into the most powerful empire the world had known. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, but history would remember him as Caligula, Little Boots, a nickname from the soldiers who adored him. For a brief moment, he was Rome's golden prince. But soon, the boy who charmed legions descended into madness, becoming one of history's most infamous rulers. Gaius was the son of Germanicus, a beloved general, and Agrippina the Elder, a noblewoman of great influence. As a child, he joined his father's campaigns along the Rhine, wearing a miniature soldier's uniform, hence the nickname. His father's men saw him as Rome's future, the heir to an empire stretching from Britain's wilds to Egypt's sands. But tragedy struck early. In 19 CE, Germanicus died mysteriously, rumored poisoned by Emperor Tiberius, his great uncle. Whether true or not, Germanicus's death threw his family into turmoil. Agrippina clashed fiercely with Tiberius. One by one, Caligula's brothers and mother were exiled or executed. Only he survived. Despite a blood-soaked childhood Caligula endured, sent to live under Tiberius's watchful eye on Capri, he learned power's dark politics. The island was ruled by paranoia and cruelty, with Tiberius a reclusive, suspicious old man. Caligula played the game well, hiding his thoughts, charming the court, waiting for his moment. In 37 CE, the old emperor died and Caligula became Rome's ruler. His rise brought joy. People saw in him Germanicus's son, a beacon of hope after Tiberius's cold rule. At first, Caligula did not disappoint. He freed political prisoners, ended harsh trials, and showered gifts on the people. Games and feasts turned Rome into a city of celebration. It seemed a golden age had begun. But then something changed. Historians debate what happened, but within the first year of his reign, Caligula fell seriously ill. Some say it was a fever, others claim poisoning. Whatever it was, when he recovered, he was no longer the same man. The charming young emperor was gone, replaced by something far more terrifying. What followed was one of the most infamous reigns in Roman history. Caligula's rule became a spectacle of extravagance, paranoia, and cruelty. He drained the empire's treasury on palaces and extravagant parties. He proclaimed himself a god, demanding worship as Jupiter incarnate. Statues of him were erected in temples, and he insisted that senators and citizens alike bow before him. His madness extended beyond vanity. He delighted in humiliation, forcing great senators to grovel. He is said to have replaced the heads of statues of gods with his own likeness and even planned to appoint his favorite horse, Incitatus, as consul, a position meant for Rome's highest officials. Whether this was a true intention or a mockery of Rome's elite remains debated, but it showed his disdain for tradition. His cruelty knew no bounds. He ordered executions on a whim, sometimes for amusement. Friends, allies, even family members were not safe. He had his sister, Drusilla, whom he was rumored to have had an unnatural affection for, declared a goddess after her death. Those who displeased him were tortured, banished, or worse, used as entertainment in Rome's bloody arenas. Perhaps the most bizarre obsession was his fascination with the sea. Believing himself a divine conqueror, he ordered his legions to declare war on Neptune, the god of the sea. Soldiers were commanded to march to the English Channel and collect seashells as spoils of war. Rome watched in disbelief as its once promising emperor turned warfare into absurdity. But power built on terror is never secure. As Caligula's madness grew, so did his enemies. The Praetorian Guard, the soldiers sworn to protect him, had seen enough. In 41 CE, after less than 4 years on the throne, a conspiracy was hatched. On January 24th, as Caligula walked through a palace corridor, guards surrounded him with swords drawn. They struck. The emperor, once worshipped as a god, fell, bleeding, pleading, and gasping for air. He was stabbed over 30 times before his body was left in the dirt. His wife and young daughter were also executed, ensuring no heir would rise in his name. Here's a more concise version of the text, keeping the core message and emotional impact intact. Thus ended Caligula's reign, the emperor who rose to glory only to be consumed by madness. His name would be remembered not as a hero, but as a warning of what happens when absolute power falls into unhinged hands. After his death, Rome struggled to understand his actions. Was he truly mad, or was he testing the limits of power? Some believed he suffered from an undiagnosed illness, perhaps epilepsy or a neurological disorder. Others saw him as a symbol of unchecked power, proof that even the mightiest empire could be brought to its knees by one man's whims. Though his reign was short, Caligula's legend endured. His name became synonymous with excess, cruelty, and insanity. For centuries, his story would be retold, a dark fable of how power can twist even the brightest minds. Tonight, as you close your eyes, remember Caligula, not just as a tale of madness, but as a reminder that history is shaped by those who wield power. His reign may have ended in blood, but his name echoes through time, a warning of what happens when an empire places its fate in unhinged hands. Sleep well, dear dreamer. Even the most powerful rulers left unchecked can become mere shadows in history. Pope John XII, the sinner on the papal throne. In 937 CE, a boy named Octavianus was born into one of Rome's most powerful families. His father, Ulrich II of Spalato, held sway in the fading Holy Roman Empire. But young Octavianus was no warrior or scholar. History would remember him as Pope John XII, the most infamous pope to sit on St. Peter's throne, a ruler who turned the Vatican into his personal den of vice. Octavianus was born into privilege, not piety. As his father neared death, he ensured his son would inherit more than just wealth. He would inherit the papacy. At just 18, Octavianus was elected Pope John XII, not for his spiritual qualifications, but because of his family's political influence. A teenager now held the highest office in Christendom. But instead of humility, the Vatican found itself ruled by a reckless, immoral young man, far removed from matters of faith. From the moment he ascended to the papacy in 955 CE, John XII transformed the Lateran Palace into a court of sin. He surrounded himself with pleasure seekers, gamblers, and courtesans. The holy sites of Rome became playgrounds for indulgence, with some claiming the Vatican resembled a brothel more than a house of God. He abandoned papal decorum for scandalous debauchery, rumored to engage in fornication within the sacred halls of the Lateran. Cardinals and bishops whispered of his lovers, both nuns and noblewomen, and claimed he defiled holy sites with ritual orgies. John VII's sins extended beyond lust. He was accused of simony, selling church offices to the highest bidder, and bribery, using the church's wealth to fund his lavish lifestyle. He spent more time hunting, feasting, and drinking than tending to his flock, gambling away sacred treasures for personal pleasures. The papacy's corruption grew so blatant that even devout believers could no longer ignore it. Whispers became outcries, and John XII became the embodiment of sin. His incompetence in political affairs matched his indulgences. In a desperate bid to secure his power, he allied with Otto I, crowning him Holy Roman Emperor in 962 CE. However, almost immediately, John XII betrayed Otto, secretly aligning with his enemies. Otto responded by marching on Rome in 963 CE, deposing John XII and installing a more suitable pope. John VII fled into exile but returned months later with a rebellious force, reclaiming the Vatican through bloodshed and intimidation. His brief return was marked by revenge, mutilating and executing his enemies. However, his reign of terror was short-lived. John the Swin's story ends in fitting irony. In May 964 CE, at the age of 27, he died suddenly, under scandalous circumstances. Some say divine wrath struck him, others claim he suffered a fatal stroke during adultery. One widely circulated rumor states he was killed by the husband of one of his lovers, caught in the act. His death came not in prayer or repentance, but in the shadow of sin, just as he had lived. Even in death, John VII left behind a legacy of disgrace. His reign brought the papacy to one of its lowest points, when the leader of the Christian world was a drunken, lustful tyrant. Historians struggle to comprehend how the Church allowed such a man to rise to power. His papacy became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of giving power to the undeserving. The Vatican, tainted by his corruption, spent years trying to erase the memory of his rule, but history would not forget. John XII became the symbol of the worst excesses of the papacy, a grim reminder that even sacred institutions are not immune to human vice. As you drift to sleep, let John VII's story remind you of history's darker chapters. He was not a holy man, not a leader of virtue, but a sinner who turned the holiest seat into a palace of indulgence. His name lingers in history, not as a saint, but as a warning. Remember, power, even in the hands of those meant to guide, can be corrupted beyond redemption. In 1166, in the halls of the Plantagenet dynasty, a child was born who would become one of the most infamous rulers in English history. His name was John, the youngest son of King Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine. Unlike his brothers, great warriors, and noblemen, John would not be remembered for valor or wisdom. Instead, history remembers him as King John, the monarch who lost nearly everything: his land, his allies, his people's trust, and even his reputation. John's early life was marked by neglect and low expectations. His father, King Henry II, called him John Lackland because he had no territories to rule. His brothers, Henry the Young King, Richard the Lionheart, and Geoffrey, overshadowed him, leaving John with little to call his own. But John was ambitious. Lacking Richard's military skill or Henry's charisma, he was cunning, manipulative, and willing to do anything to secure power. When Henry II died in 1189, the throne passed to Richard the Lionheart. But while Richard was away on crusades, John began scheming. He conspired with Philip II of France to seize the throne, plotting against his own brother. But when Richard returned, John's treachery was exposed. Here's a more concise version of your text while retaining the meaning and emotional impact. Instead of punishing him severely, Richard showed mercy, a mistake England would later regret. When Richard died in 1199, John ascended the throne. Unlike his brother, John lacked the qualities of a great king. He was cruel where Richard was fair, cowardly where Richard was brave, and incompetent where Richard was strategic. His reign was marked by failure, setting the stage for disaster. One of his greatest failures was his conflict with Philip II of France. John inherited a vast empire, but lacked the military skill to defend it. Within a few years, he lost Normandy, a humiliating defeat that earned him the scorn of nobles and people alike. His response? More taxes. Desperate for funds, John taxed both the nobility and commoners, pushing England to the brink of revolt. He extorted the clergy, stole from barons, and imprisoned those who opposed him. His rule was one of greed and oppression, making him enemies at every turn. John's thirst for power extended even to his family. In 1203, his nephew Arthur of Brittany, the rightful heir to much of John's French territory, was captured. Fearing a challenge to his rule, John ordered Arthur's execution, a crime that horrified even his supporters. Rumors spread that John personally murdered Arthur in a drunken rage, throwing his body into the River Seine. Whether true or not, Arthur was never seen again, and John's reputation was stained. As John's failures mounted, so did opposition to his rule. His cruel taxation, military disasters, and corruption led to a rebellion in 1215. At Runnymede, John was forced to sign the Magna Carta, limiting the monarchy's power and establishing that kings were not above the law. Though he signed it reluctantly, he had no intention of honoring it, quickly breaking his promises and plunging England into civil war. Here's a more concise version that keeps the meaning and emotion intact. John's response was disastrous. He burned towns, destroyed castles, and turned England into a battlefield, even hiring foreign mercenaries to fight his own people. But it was too late. His kingdom was crumbling. By 1216, John's rule was collapsing. The French had invaded, the barons had turned against him, and England teetered on ruin. As he fled, misfortune sealed his fate. Crossing the Wash during a storm, his royal treasure, including the crown jewels, was lost to the sea. Broken and sick, John retreated to Newark Castle. In October 1216, he died of dysentery, abandoned by allies and hated by his people. Few mourned him. His reign had been marked by failure, cruelty, and betrayal. Yet, the Magna Carta he signed in desperation outlived him, changing the world and laying the foundation for constitutional government. Though John was reviled, the Magna Carta inspired future generations and shaped legal systems in England, America, and beyond. The tyrant who defied the law became the unwilling architect of a world where rulers were held accountable. As you close your eyes, remember King John, a ruler whose greed, cruelty, and incompetence nearly destroyed his kingdom, but whose failure led to the birth of a system where kings could no longer rule unchecked. Even the worst rulers leave behind lessons that shape the future. Even the terrible, the Tsar who ruled with fear. In the harsh Russian winter of 1530, Ivan Vasilovich was born in Moscow. He would become Ivan the Terrible, shaping Russia through blood, war, and terror. At 3, he became Grand Prince of Moscow after his father's sudden death. His mother acted as regent but was poisoned when Ivan was 8, leaving him vulnerable to power-hungry nobles. Ivan grew up in an atmosphere of cruelty and intrigue. The boyar families fought for control, treating him as a puppet. He was humiliated, starved, and forced to witness violence and betrayal. These years of torment shaped his soul, filling him with deep paranoia and burning hatred for the boyars. But Ivan was no ordinary child. He spent his youth devouring books, especially religious texts and histories of Rome and Byzantium. He saw himself as a divine ruler, chosen by God to transform Russia into a mighty empire. In 1547, at 16, Ivan took control of Russia, declaring himself Tsar of all Rus, a title no ruler had claimed before. This was not vanity. By calling himself Tsar, he placed himself above the boyars, ruling by divine right, not their will. His early reign was promising. Ivan introduced legal reforms, strengthened the military, and created a standing army, the Streltsy. He modernized Russia's administration, reducing the power of corrupt noble families and centralizing control. He expanded Russia's borders, conquering the Tatar Khanates of Kazan and Astrakhan, securing vast new territories and access to the Caspian Sea. But beneath this progress, Ivan's inner demons festered. His paranoia deepened, cruelty grew, and his reign darkened with each passing year. In 1560, tragedy struck. Anastasia Romanova, Ivan's beloved wife and stabilizing force, died suddenly, likely poisoned by the boyars. Devastated, Ivan spiraled into grief and madness. He became convinced that his nobles were conspiring against him, and his trust in anyone shattered. With vengeance in his heart, Ivan unleashed his wrath. In 1565, he created the Oprichnina, a state within a state, ruled by his personal army. The Oprichniki, dressed in black, riding black horses, and bearing the insignia of a dog's head and a broom, symbols of sniffing out traitors and sweeping away enemies, became the instruments of Ivan's terror. What followed was a reign of brutality and bloodshed. Boyar families were purged, their lands and wealth seized. Thousands were arrested, tortured, and executed on Ivan's orders. Some were impaled, others torn apart by wild dogs. Cities that resisted were razed. In 1570, Ivan turned on the once loyal city of Novgorod. Believing it harbored traitors, his army descended, slaughtering tens of thousands of men, women, and children. The streets ran red with blood, bodies filled the Volkhov River. Russia had never seen such terror. Here's a more concise version of the text while keeping its meaning and emotional impact. As the years passed, Ivan's paranoia worsened, seeing enemies even within his own family. In 1581, in a fit of rage, he struck his son, Ivan Ivanovich, with his iron-tipped staff, killing him. Holding his dying son, Ivan realized too late the depth of his madness. He had killed the one who could continue his legacy. The tragedy shattered him. With no heir, Ivan's death in 1584 plunged Russia into chaos. Some say it was a stroke, others whisper of poison. His final moments were spent playing chess, a game of strategy and deception, like his life. Russia entered the time of troubles, a period of political instability. Without Ivan's iron grip, rival factions fought for control and foreign invaders struck. It took decades for Russia to recover from his rule. Was Ivan truly terrible, or simply a man shaped by cruelty in a brutal age? He expanded Russia, forged an empire, and strengthened its military, but also tortured, murdered, and terrorized his people. He saw himself as a divine warrior, yet brought suffering and chaos. His rule is a paradox, a mixture of triumph and horror, ambition and madness. He laid the foundation for the Russia that would rise under the Romanovs, but at an immeasurable cost. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine the snow-covered streets of Moscow and the Oprichniki galloping through the dark, their torches flickering like ghosts. Ivan the Terrible ruled with fear, and though he's long gone, his shadow still lingers in history. So sleep well, dear dreamer, and remember, power, when consumed by fear and vengeance, shapes empires, but at a terrible cost. Here's a more concise version of your text, maintaining the key details and emotions. King Richard II would not be remembered as a warrior king like his father, nor a builder of empire like his grandfather. Instead, he would be known as the king who lost his throne. Tragedy struck early when his father, the Black Prince, died when Richard was just 10. Suddenly, the boy became heir to a powerful throne. When Edward III died in 1377, Richard was crowned King of England. Too young to rule, his kingdom was governed by powerful nobles, especially his uncle, John of Gaunt. As Richard grew older, he sought to break free from their control, determined to rule on his own. In 1381, during the Peasants' Revolt, he faced angry rebels demanding reforms. Despite promising change, his broken promises and brutal retaliation showed his strength, but his rule would soon be defined by vengeance and paranoia. As Richard matured, his belief in his divine right to rule became firm. He surrounded himself with trusted favorites, alienating powerful barons. In 1387, the Lords Appellant seized control and executed many of his favorites, forcing Richard to submit to their authority. Humiliated, he vowed revenge. In 1397, Richard struck back, exiling or executing his enemies. He ruled with absolute power, taxing England heavily to fund his extravagant court. A lover of art, pageantry, and poetry, he saw himself as a divine ruler above the law, but absolute power breeds enemies. Richard's arrogance, cruelty, and unchecked ambition turned his kingdom against him. The lords who once feared him plotted his downfall. His greatest mistake was his treatment of Henry Bolingbroke, son of John of Gaunt. In 1398, Richard banished Henry for 10 years over a petty dispute. When John of Gaunt died in 1399, Richard seized his lands instead of letting Henry inherit them. It was a fatal error. Henry, furious and exiled, returned with an army. What began as reclaiming his inheritance became a full rebellion. Barons and people, tired of Richard's tyranny, sided with Henry. Richard, believing himself untouchable, was campaigning in Ireland. By his return, his kingdom had turned. In August 1399, Richard was captured and imprisoned in the Tower of London, humiliated and alone. In September, he was forced to abdicate, giving his crown to Henry Bolingbroke, who became King Henry IV. Richard was moved to Pontefract Castle, a cold prison. His final months are mysterious. Some say starvation, others murder on Henry's orders. In February 1400, the deposed king died and was quietly buried. His reign warns of a king undone by vanity, favoritism, and vengeance. Though disgraced, Shakespeare immortalized him as a tragic figure in Richard II, a man who lost all believing he was untouchable. His fall ended the Plantagenet dynasty's rule and led England toward the Wars of the Roses, where noble houses fought for the throne. As you drift to sleep, imagine Westminster's halls, the empty golden throne, and the echoes of a king who sought beauty over battle, poetry over politics, and power without limits. But even a king must answer to his people. From her first breath, her life was marked by power, ambition, and tragedy. History remembers her as Mary, Queen of Scots, the queen who lost everything, not in battle, but in a game of thrones played with ink, betrayal, and steel. Fate struck swiftly. 6 days after Mary's birth, her father, King James I of Scotland, died, leaving her an infant queen. Too young to understand or defend her crown, Scotland, a land of feuding clans, was ruled by a baby queen, with danger in every shadow. To protect her from England's King Henry VII, who sought to marry her to his son Edward, she was sent to France at age 5. Raised as a princess in King Henry II's glittering court, Mary was betrothed to the young French dauphin, Francis. At 16, she married him, and within a year became Queen of France. Their brief reign ended with Francis's sudden death in 1560, leaving Mary a widow at just 18. With no place in the French court and her homeland calling, she returned to Scotland, determined to reclaim her birthright. But Scotland was no longer the land she had left. Divided between Catholics and Protestants, the kingdom was filled with power-hungry nobles and the looming threat of her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I of England. As a Catholic queen in a Protestant realm, Mary's reign was marked by conflict. Her greatest mistake, however, was her choice in husbands. Seeking a strong consort, she married her cousin, Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, a handsome but arrogant nobleman. Their marriage quickly soured, with Darnley becoming a drunk, liar, and jealous tyrant. In 1566, Darnley's paranoia led him and a group of nobles to murder Mary's secretary, David Rizzio, in front of her while she was pregnant. The marriage, once promising, collapsed into hatred. In 1567, Darnley was found murdered, his body in the gardens of Kirk Field after his house was blown up. The chief suspect was Mary's new favorite, the ambitious James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell. Within weeks, Mary married Bothwell, a scandalous move that alienated Scotland. Some believed she loved him, others that she was forced into the marriage. Regardless, the people turned against her, and the Scottish nobles rose in rebellion, forcing her to abdicate in favor of her infant son, James VI. Betrayed and imprisoned, Mary fled to England seeking protection from Elizabeth. But Elizabeth, wary of rivals, saw Mary as a threat, not a guest. For 19 years, Mary was a prisoner, moving from castle to castle, a queen in name only. She wrote letters, plotted escapes, and sought support, but as time passed, hope faded and Elizabeth's patience wore thin. In 1586, Mary was implicated in the Babington plot to assassinate Elizabeth and place Mary on the English throne. Whether she was truly involved or a pawn in a larger game, it didn't matter. Elizabeth signed her death warrant. On February 8, 1587, at Fotheringhay Castle, Mary faced her fate. Dressed in red, the color of Catholic martyrdom, she climbed the scaffold, composed and regaled. She forgave her executioners, prayed for Scotland and England, and laid her head on the block. The first blow missed. The second struck but did not sever. The third ended her life. As the executioner lifted her head, her red wig came off, revealing thin, gray hair. Though she died a traitor in England, Mary's son, James VI of Scotland, would later become James I of England, uniting both crowns. Mary's story is one of beauty, betrayal, and power. A queen born to rule yet destined to fall. Her life spent fighting for a throne she would never hold. Her legacy forever tied to the blood-stained pages of history. Here's a more concise version of the text, preserving the key elements and emotional tone. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine Mary in her final moments. A queen without a crown, a woman who played the greatest game and lost. Her voice lingers in history, a whisper from the past. Sleep well, dear dreamer, and remember, once power is lost, it can never truly be reclaimed. Devout Uncle King Philip II of Spain ruled a court steeped in rigid Catholic piety, discipline, and political order. But young Rudolph was different. Quiet, introspective, and drawn not to war, but to art, mysticism, and the unknown, he suffered from melancholy, what we now call depression. Tormented by paranoia and indecision, Rudolph's heart was elsewhere, toward the stars, alchemists, strange books, and the wonders of nature. In 1576, at 24, Rudolph became Holy Roman Emperor, ruling over vast lands. But instead of ruling decisively, he turned his court in Prague into a sanctuary for magicians, scientists, and alchemists. His obsession with the occult and the supernatural became legendary, and Prague became Europe's most mysterious city. He gathered great thinkers like Johannes Kepler, Tycho Brahe, Edward Kelly, and John Dee. While Europe built empires and fought wars, Rudolph's court became a place of dreams and nightmares, where alchemists sought the philosopher's stone and astrologers read kings' fates. But as Rudolph indulged in his obsessions, his empire decayed. He neglected diplomacy, allowed nobles to run unchecked, and ignored the growing Catholic-Protestant tensions that would erupt into the 30 Years' War. His paranoia deepened, and he became isolated, convinced he was surrounded by traitors. Refusing to marry, he produced no heir, destabilizing the future of the Habsburg dynasty. His erratic behavior led to long seclusions and bizarre rituals, as he believed he was unlocking the secrets of the universe. By 1605, his enemies, led by his younger brother Matthias, turned against him. Rudolph, once the most powerful man in Christendom, was imprisoned in his own castle. In 1611, he was forced to abdicate, and Matthias took the throne. The once glorious court of Prague, filled with sorcerers, scientists, and visionaries, was dismantled. The emperor, abandoned and broken, spent his final months wandering his vast collection of art and relics, speaking to ghosts of a past that no longer existed. On January 20th, 1612, Rudolph II died alone in his castle. No grand ceremonies were held. His empire moved on, leaving behind the shattered remains of his dreams of alchemy, immortality, and lost knowledge. Though his reign was a failure, Rudolph left behind something invaluable. He preserved knowledge, nurtured thinkers, and gathered some of the greatest minds of his age. Without his patronage, Kepler might not have revolutionized astronomy. Brahe's observations could have been lost. The Renaissance's spirit of curiosity might have faded too soon. Even in madness, he dared to dream, to search for meaning in the stars, to unlock the secrets of life. Though his empire crumbled, his legacy lived on, in science, in art, and in the eternal quest for knowledge. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine the halls of Prague Castle where flickering candlelight dances across strange machines and unread tomes. Picture the emperor, lost in his world of symbols and secrets, chasing the impossible while his kingdom fell apart around him. Sleep well, dear dreamer, and remember, sometimes the greatest minds are the most troubled. Those who seek the secrets of the universe may find themselves consumed by them. Queen Ranavalona, the ruthless queen of Madagascar. On a distant island in the Indian Ocean, a girl named Ranavalona was born, who would one day rule with an iron fist. She would become one of the most feared and controversial rulers of Madagascar. To some, she was a defender of sovereignty, protecting her people from European influence. To others, she was a tyrant, whose brutal reign bathed her kingdom in blood. Ranavalona was not born into royalty. She was a commoner, the daughter of a man who uncovered a plot against the ruling king, Andrianampoina Marina. In gratitude, the king adopted Ranavalona and arranged for her to marry his son, Radama, the future king. Radama became King Radama I in 1810. Under his rule, Madagascar opened to European influences. Christian missionaries arrived, schools were built, and trade flourished. But Ranavalona, seeing foreigners as invaders, opposed these changes. When Radama died in 1828, a power struggle erupted. By tradition, the throne should have passed to one of Radama's nephews. But Ranavalona had other plans. With the support of military leaders, she seized the throne, swiftly executing those who opposed her. The commoner's daughter had become Queen Ranavalona I. Ranavalona wasted no time in reversing her late husband's policies. She expelled Christian missionaries, outlawed European customs, and banned the teaching of foreign languages, seeing Christianity as a tool of colonialism, a threat to her power. Her rule became infamously brutal. Suspected traitors, Christian converts, or political enemies were subjected to the cruel Tangena ordeal, a deadly trial by poison. Survivors were declared innocent, the dead guilty. Justice in the Queen's eyes was that simple. Entire communities were massacred for defying her. Tens of thousands were killed in purges, while many others died from forced labor, building fortresses and roads at her command. Ranavalona's reign became one of fear, where loyalty was bought with blood, and suspicion could mean death. Despite her cruelty, Ranavalona was a master strategist, successfully keeping European powers at bay when much of Africa fell under colonial rule. The French and British attempted to overthrow her, but she outmaneuvered them time and again. In 1845, the French and British navies launched an attack on Madagascar, determined to end her reign. But Ranavalona was prepared. Using her formidable army and knowledge of the terrain, she defeated the invasion, securing her place on the throne. Madagascar remained independent for more than 3 decades. Ranavalona ruled with absolute power, but by the 1860s her health declined. She had outlived her rivals, enemies, and many advisors. In 1861, after 33 years of rule, she died in her sleep, an unusual and peaceful end for a queen whose reign had been anything but. Her death was met with both relief and sorrow. Some mourned her as a patriot, others celebrated her passing, seeing it as the end of a reign of terror. Ranavalona's son, Radama II, quickly undid many of her policies, reopening Madagascar to the outside world. But his reign was short-lived, and Madagascar's future remained turbulent. European powers would eventually control the island, but Ranavalona had held them off longer than anyone thought possible. To this day, Ranavalona remains one of history's most complex and controversial figures. Was she a tyrant, driven by paranoia and cruelty, or a visionary who resisted imperialism at all costs? Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine the stone walls of the Rova of Antananarivo, where a queen once ruled with an iron hand. Picture the flickering torches of her palace, where loyalty and betrayal were separated by the thinnest thread. Sleep well, dear dreamer, and remember, power is a double-edged sword, and history is never as simple as it seems. Here's a more concise version of your text, maintaining its key points and emotional impact. King Leopold II, the Butcher of the Congo. On a crisp April morning in 1835, in Brussels, a prince named Leopold was born, who would become one of history's most infamous rulers. Though he would wear the crown of Belgium, his true ambition lay far beyond its borders. By the time his reign ended, millions would be dead, and his empire built on cruelty would crumble. Leopold grew up in a prosperous Belgium, a young monarchy newly independent in 1830. Yet he was not content with ruling a small European nation. He looked to Africa, where European powers were claiming vast territories. Britain had India, France had Algeria, and the Netherlands ruled Indonesia. Leopold wanted an empire of his own. When he ascended to the throne in 1865, he knew Belgium alone could not afford a vast empire. But Leopold was cunning. If Belgium couldn't claim a colony, he would claim one himself. He set his sights on Central Africa, rich in ivory and rubber. In 1876, he established the International African Association, presenting it as a charitable mission to bring civilization to Africa. It was all a lie. Through deception, bribes, and manipulation, Leopold took control of the Congo in 1885, declaring it his personal property, the Congo Free State. It wasn't a Belgian colony, but Leopold's private empire, 76 times the size of Belgium, where he ruled as an absolute master. Leopold's Congo was not a land of civilization, but one of brutality, slavery, and greed. The forests of the Congo were home to valuable rubber. As demand surged during the Industrial Revolution, Leopold saw an opportunity for immense wealth. Rather than pay workers, he enslaved the Congolese people. Entire villages were forced to gather rubber under brutal conditions. Here's a more concise version that keeps the essence and emotional weight. Those who failed to meet their quotas faced torture, mutilation, or execution, with the most infamous punishment being the severing of hands. Soldiers known as the Force Publique collected severed hands as proof of the use of bullets. Piles of hands became the grim currency of Leopold's reign. Women were kidnapped, children enslaved, and entire communities massacred if they resisted. It's estimated that over 10 million Congolese died under Leopold's rule, more than half the population. For years, the horrors of the Congo were concealed by Leopold's propaganda, presenting him as a benevolent ruler and a patron of civilization. He built monuments in Belgium and funded public projects, adored by his European subjects who knew nothing of his atrocities. But eventually, the truth surfaced. Journalists and missionaries, notably Edmond de Morel and Roger Casement, exposed the horrors. Photographs of Congolese men, women, and children missing hands spread across Europe. Public outrage grew, and under international pressure, Leopold was forced to surrender the Congo to Belgium in 1908. But the damage had been done, and the scars of Leopold's rule would never fully heal. Leopold showed no remorse for his actions. He amassed unimaginable wealth, and as he died in 1909, surrounded by luxury, ordered all records of his rule be burned to erase his crimes. But the world did not forget. Today, Leopold II is remembered not as a great king, but as a butcher, a man who turned a nation into a labor camp, ruling with unspeakable cruelty. The terror of his reign left a wound that never fully healed. Tonight, as you close your eyes, think of the silent forests of the Congo, where a terrible history still lingers. The voices of those who suffered may have been silenced, but they are never forgotten. Leopold thought he could erase the truth, but history remembers. Power, when driven by greed and cruelty, leaves shadows that never fade. History, like the night sky, is a tapestry of both darkness and light. We've wandered through the shadows of the world's worst rulers, men who ruled with cruelty, greed, and folly. But fear not, dear dreamer, for even the longest night must give way to dawn. Now let us shift toward a different story, one where wisdom, courage, and justice shape the world. Rest easy as we journey into the lives of the greatest rulers, leaders who lit the way, left legacies of hope, and proved that power, when wielded wisely, can change the world for the better. Alexander the Great, the conqueror of the world. Tonight, we explore the life and legacy of Alexander the Great, the ruler who dreamed beyond horizons and conquered the known world. His story is one of ambition, courage, and brilliance, a tale of an extraordinary man whose vision shaped history. Close your eyes and step into a world where empires rise and fall, where legends are born, and the echo of greatness still resonates. Alexander was born in 356 BC in Pella, the ancient capital of Macedonia. His father, King Philip II, was a brilliant military leader who united the Greek city-states under Macedonian rule. His mother, Queen Olympias, was a powerful woman who believed Alexander was destined for greatness. She told him his lineage traced back to Achilles, the legendary hero of the Trojan War. From an early age, Alexander displayed intelligence, courage, and ambition. At 13, he was tutored by Aristotle, one of history's greatest philosophers. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander developed a love for philosophy, science, and literature, but his heart burned for glory and conquest. At just 16, Alexander commanded his first military campaign, crushing a rebellion and founding his first city, Alexandropolis. His father proudly declared, "My boy, you must find a kingdom large enough for your ambitions. Macedonia is too small for you." And indeed, Alexander's ambitions would extend far beyond Macedonia's borders. In 336 BC, after King Philip II's assassination, 20-year-old Alexander ascended to the throne. To secure his rule, he swiftly eliminated rivals, showing both cunning and determination. With Greece under his control, Alexander turned eastward, toward the mighty Persian Empire. Before setting out, he visited the Oracle of Delphi, seeking guidance. Legend has it, the priestess declared, "My son, you are invincible." Armed with divine prophecy and unmatched confidence, Alexander began his epic journey of conquest. Here's a more concise version of the text, retaining its core meaning and emotional impact. Alexander's campaign against Persia was extraordinary. In 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor with a powerful army. At the Battle of Granicus, his forces won decisively, opening the gateway to Asia. His most famous battle came in 331 BC at Gaugamela, where, vastly outnumbered, Alexander used brilliant tactics to defeat Persian King Darius III. Darius fled, and Alexander was crowned King of Asia. He entered Babylon in triumph, celebrated as a liberator, and conquered the great Persian cities of Susa and Persepolis, where he famously burned the royal palace, symbolizing the end of Persian dominance. In 332 BC, he marched into Egypt, where he was crowned pharaoh. He also visited the Oracle of Siwa, which proclaimed him the son of Zeus Ammon, solidifying his authority. Inspired by his vision of a united empire, Alexander founded Alexandria on the Mediterranean coast, which became a center of knowledge and culture. Continuing east, he crossed the Hindu Kush into India, where he defeated King Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes in 326 BC, despite facing war elephants. Impressed by Porus's bravery, he made him an ally. At the edge of the world, his men, weary after years of relentless campaigning, refused to march further. Reluctantly, Alexander led them home through the harsh deserts of Gedrosia, where many perished. In 323 BC, at 32, Alexander fell ill in Babylon. Some say it was a fever, others believe it was poison. When asked who would inherit his empire, he replied, "To the strongest." He passed into legend. His death led to decades of conflict, known as the Wars of the Diadochi, as his generals divided the empire. Yet Alexander's legacy endured. He changed the world profoundly, spreading Greek culture across 3 continents and creating the Hellenistic civilization. His city, Alexandria, became a beacon of learning, home to the Library of Alexandria. Alexander inspired countless leaders, from Julius Caesar to Napoleon, who sought to emulate his conquests. His legend grew, immortalized as the greatest general in history. As we close, remember his words: "There is nothing impossible to him who will try." Here's a more concise version while retaining the essence and emotional impact. His legacy lives not just in the lands he ruled, but in the dreams he inspired. Let the spirit of Alexander the Great guide your dreams tonight, filling them with courage, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. Sweet dreams, traveler of historical wonders. Julius Caesar, the man who shaped Rome. Let us journey through the life of Julius Caesar, whose ambition, genius, and courage transformed Rome from a republic into an empire. His story is one of military triumphs, political intrigue, and a tragic end that echoes through history. Julius Caesar was born in 100 BC into the powerful Julii family, claiming descent from Venus. Though his family's political influence was waning, he was taught greatness was his birthright. Rome, however, was plagued by corruption and civil strife. At 16, Caesar became head of his family after his father's death. Navigating Rome's dangerous politics with cunning, he defied dictator Sulla at 18 by refusing to divorce his wife, Cornelia. Sulla spared him, but ominously said, "In Caesar, there are many Mariuses." To avoid persecution, Caesar joined the military, displaying extraordinary courage and strategic brilliance, earning the civic crown. Returning to Rome, he climbed the political ladder, becoming a lawyer and gaining fame for his oratory skills. His political alliances with Crassus and Pompey formed the first triumvirate, a dominant force in Roman politics, though rivalry brewed beneath the surface. In 58 BC, Caesar became governor of Gaul. With unmatched military genius, he expanded Rome's territory, conquering the Gallic tribes and amassing wealth. His campaigns were legendary, braving harsh winters, building bridges over the Rhine, and even invading Britain. At the Battle of Alesia, he defeated the powerful Vercingetorix. His commentaries on the Gallic War showcased his strategic brilliance and mastery of propaganda. However, his growing power and popularity alarmed political rivals, especially Pompey, who turned against him. The seeds of civil war were sown. In 49 BC, the Senate, under Pompey's influence, ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Defying this, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his legion, declaring, "Alea iacta est," the die is cast. This act ignited civil war. With unmatched speed and strategy, Caesar marched on Rome, forcing Pompey and his supporters to flee. In a series of brilliant campaigns, he pursued Pompey across Greece, Egypt, and Africa. At the Battle of Pharsalus, despite being outnumbered, Caesar defeated Pompey, solidifying control over Rome. In Egypt, Caesar became entangled with Queen Cleopatra, whose charm and intelligence captivated him. Their alliance was romantic and political, cementing his influence in the East. Returning to Rome, Caesar was declared dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. He initiated sweeping reforms, including the Julian calendar, economic relief, and citizenship expansion. His vision was a strong, centralized government to end the republic's corruption and chaos. Yet his power sparked fear and jealousy among senators who saw him as a tyrant, threatening Republican tradition. They conspired to end his reign. On March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March, Caesar entered the Senate unaware of the plot. Surrounded by conspirators, he was stabbed 23 times. Among them was Brutus, whom Caesar trusted. His last words, legend says, were, "Et tu, Brute?" And you, Brutus? He fell at Pompey's statue, his death symbolizing the Republic's end. His assassination plunged Rome into chaos and civil war. The power vacuum allowed his heir, Octavian, later Augustus, to rise as Rome's first emperor, marking the Roman Empire's birth. Julius Caesar's influence extended beyond his life. He expanded Rome's territories, laid foundations for imperial rule, and reformed political, social, and economic systems. His name became synonymous with power. Caesar became a title for rulers from Roman emperors to Russian czars and German kaisers. His life inspired literature, art, and drama, immortalized in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. His military tactics and political strategies continue to shape leadership and governance. As our journey ends, remember the man who dared to reshape Rome. He once said, "Veni, vidi, vici." I came, I saw, I conquered. His legacy lives on in history and in those who dare to dream. Tonight, let the spirit of Julius Caesar guide your dreams, filling them with courage, ambition, and the drive to shape your destiny. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders. Ramses II. The pharaoh who defied time. Let us journey through the life and legacy of Ramses II, the mighty pharaoh who ruled Egypt with unmatched power and splendor. Known as Ramses the Great, he was a warrior, builder, and ruler whose name became synonymous with greatness. His reign was one of prosperity, monumentality, and legend, a tale of a king who sought immortality through his deeds and monuments. Close your eyes and step into a world of golden sands, majestic temples, and a ruler who defied time itself. Ramses II was born in 1303 BC to Pharaoh Seti I and Queen Tuya during the 19th dynasty of ancient Egypt. From an early age, he was destined for greatness. As the crown prince, he accompanied his father on military campaigns, learning the art of war and leadership. His father, a great builder and warrior, inspired him to dream of an empire that would stand for eternity. At just 14 years old, Ramses was appointed as co-regent, ruling alongside his father. He was trained in statecraft, military strategy, and diplomacy, preparing him to inherit the throne of Egypt. When Seti passed away, young Ramses ascended to the throne, becoming pharaoh, the living embodiment of the god Horus. With a vision of greatness, he set out to restore Egypt's power and glory. Under his reign, lasting 66 years, he became one of the longest reigning pharaohs in history. Ramses was a fearless warrior, known for his courage, strategic brilliance, and military prowess. Early in his reign, he launched campaigns to secure Egypt's borders and expand its influence. His most famous battle was the Battle of Kadesh against the Hittites in 1274 BC, one of the largest chariot battles in history. Ramses led his army into battle with unmatched bravery. Despite being ambushed, he rallied his troops, charged into the enemy ranks, and turned the tide of battle. Though the battle ended in a stalemate, Ramses declared it a glorious victory. To commemorate his triumph, he commissioned monumental reliefs depicting the battle on temple walls across Egypt, including at the Ramesseum and Abu Simbel. These carvings immortalized his valor and power. To ensure peace, Ramses signed the Treaty of Kadesh with the Hittite king, a historic peace agreement that ended decades of conflict and established diplomatic relations between Egypt and the Hittites. Here's a more concise version of the text, maintaining the key points and emotional impact. Ramesses II was a master builder, leaving a legacy of monumental architecture that endures to this day. His creations, including colossal temples, statues, and cities, proclaimed his divine authority and greatness. His most magnificent creation was the Great Temple of Abu Simbel, carved into the cliffs above the Nile, guarded by 4 statues of Ramesses himself. Twice a year, the sun illuminated the inner sanctuary, bathing the statues in golden light, symbolizing his divine connection. He also built the Ramesseum, his mortuary temple in Thebes, and expanded the Karnak temple. His architectural feats were designed to defy time and ensure his legacy would be remembered forever. Ramesses II was not just a mighty ruler, but also a loving husband and father. His beloved queen, Nefertari, inspired the temple of Hathor at Abu Simbel, dedicated to her as the one for whom the sun shines. He was father to over 100 children, securing his dynasty by appointing them to key positions. He earned the title the Great Ancestor for his devotion to his family and people. Ramesses proclaimed himself a living god, worshipped alongside Amun, and connected himself to Horus and Osiris. His image, wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, was carved across Egypt, symbolizing his divine authority. Ruling for 66 years, he guided Egypt through peace, prosperity, and monumental achievements. His reign marked Egypt's golden age, a period of cultural influence and power. Ramesses died at 90 and was mummified in the Valley of the Kings. His tomb, richly decorated, reflected his grandeur and divine journey to the afterlife. His mummy, discovered in 1881, now rests in the Egyptian Museum, his face preserved for eternity. His legacy endures through his architecture, military conquests, and cultural influence. As he once said, "I am Ramses, ruler of rulers. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." His legacy lies not only in the temples he built, but in the spirit of greatness that continues to inspire. Tonight, let the spirit of Ramses the Great guide your dreams, filling them with courage, ambition, and the desire to leave a mark upon the world. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders. Genghis Khan, the conqueror of empires. Let us journey through the life and legacy of Genghis Khan, the warrior who united the tribes of the steppes and built the largest contiguous empire the world has ever known. His story is one of survival, strategy, and sheer determination, a tale of a man who rose from hardship to reshape history. Close your eyes and step into a world of vast plains, thundering hooves, and legendary conquests. Born as Temujin around 1162 near the Onon River in Mongolia's rugged steppes, Genghis Khan's father, Yesuge, was a tribal chief with fragile power, held together by shifting alliances. When Temujin was only 9, his father was poisoned by a rival tribe, leaving the family vulnerable and destitute. Abandoned by his own clan, young Temujin faced starvation and danger. He learned to survive in the harsh wilderness, forging strength and resilience. Captured and enslaved by a rival tribe, he escaped through sheer willpower, vowing never to be helpless again. These early hardships shaped his relentless drive for power and unity. From the beginning, his life was a struggle for survival, and survival meant strength, loyalty, and victory. Temujin gathered loyal followers, uniting warriors from various tribes who had suffered under fractured rule. His vision was clear: a united Mongol nation, bound not by bloodlines but by loyalty and merit. To achieve this, he married Berte, his lifelong companion and political ally. When she was kidnapped by a rival tribe, Temujin sought help from his blood brother, Jamuka. Together, they launched a daring rescue. However, their alliance soured and ambition drove them apart. Their rivalry culminated in a fierce battle where Temujin emerged victorious. Jamuka was captured and, though offered mercy, chose an honorable death, refusing to serve the man who had surpassed him. With his rival defeated, Temujin was proclaimed Genghis Khan, universal ruler, uniting the Mongol tribes under his leadership. It was the beginning of an empire that would change the world. Genghis Khan revolutionized Mongol society. He abolished inherited aristocratic titles, promoting people based on loyalty and merit. He enforced a strict code of laws, the Yasa, emphasizing discipline, loyalty, and justice. He reorganized his army into units of 10, known as arbands, creating a highly efficient military structure. Discipline was absolute, and his warriors, masters of archery and horseback riding, were known for their mobility and ferocity. He established a communication network of mounted couriers, the Yam, ensuring rapid communication across his empire. Trade routes were protected, fostering commerce and cultural exchange. Merchants and scholars were valued and protected under his rule. Genghis Khan's ambition knew no boundaries. In 1206, he launched his first campaign against the Western Xia kingdom, swiftly defeating them and securing his western border. His next target was the powerful Jin dynasty in northern China. Using unmatched military tactics, he conquered their fortified cities with psychological warfare, espionage, and brilliant strategies. His reputation as an invincible conqueror spread quickly. But Genghis Khan's wrath was merciless. When the Khwarezm Empire of Persia executed his envoys, he unleashed his fury. He razed entire cities, leaving devastation, but spared artisans and scholars, recognizing their value to his empire. His army marched through Central Asia, reaching as far as the Caspian Sea. No force could stand against his strategic brilliance and unyielding ambition. Despite his fearsome reputation, Genghis Khan was a visionary leader. He promoted religious tolerance, allowing his subjects to practice their faiths freely. He sought to unite his empire not just through military might, but governance and law. He abolished torture and established a fair tax system, ensuring prosperity. Understanding the importance of knowledge, he invited scholars and engineers to his court, facilitating the exchange of ideas between East and West. Under his rule, the Silk Road flourished, connecting Europe and Asia, leading to a golden age of trade and cultural exchange. In 1226, Genghis Khan launched his final campaign against the rebellious Western Xia kingdom. Despite his age, he led with relentless vigor. Legend says he was injured in battle but fought on, driven by his unyielding spirit. In 1227, Genghis Khan passed away under mysterious circumstances. Some say it was from his wounds, others believe it was illness. His body was buried in a secret location, its resting place still undiscovered. Before his death, he divided his empire among his sons, ensuring its continuity. His descendants expanded the empire into the largest land empire in history, stretching from China to Europe. Genghis Khan's impact on history is profound. He united the nomadic tribes of Mongolia, built an empire that reshaped global trade and communication, and facilitated cultural exchange across continents. Here's a more concise version of your text while maintaining its meaning and emotional impact. Genghis Khan, the punishment of God. Despite his ruthless conquests, Genghis Khan laid the foundations of modern civilization through tolerance, diplomacy, and the rule of law. His military strategies are still studied by generals worldwide. His name became synonymous with power and ambition, and his bloodline spread across nations. It's said that 1 in every 200 men today carries his genetic legacy. As our journey through Genghis Khan's world ends, take one last look at the man who united the steppes and conquered empires. He once said, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." His legacy endures in both the lands he conquered and the spirit of unity and ambition that still inspires us. Let the spirit of Genghis Khan guide your dreams, filling them with courage, vision, and determination to overcome obstacles. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders. Ashoka the Great, the emperor who chose peace. Let's explore the life and legacy of Ashoka the Great, the emperor who transformed from a ruthless conqueror to a compassionate ruler. His journey is one of power, redemption, and enlightenment, with a man who chose peace over violence, and whose message of tolerance still resonates today. Born in 304 BC into the Maurya dynasty, Ashoka was the grandson of Chandragupta Maurya, founder of the Mauryan Empire. Though his father, Emperor Bindusara, ruled much of India, Ashoka was not his favorite son. Determined to prove his worth, Ashoka became known for his courage, intelligence, and ruthless ambition. After quelling a revolt in Taxila with brutal efficiency, he earned the nickname Chand Ashoka, Ashoka the Fierce. Following his father's death, a battle for succession ensued. Ashoka emerged victorious, ascending the throne after eliminating all rivals. His ambition was boundless, turning his attention to the neighboring kingdom of Kalinga. In 261 BC, Ashoka launched a brutal invasion of Kalinga, the last kingdom to resist Mauryan rule. The war was fierce, and while Ashoka's army won, the victory came at a terrible cost. Here's a more concise version that maintains the emotional depth and key events. The battlefields were filled with corpses, and rivers ran red with blood. Over 100,000 soldiers and civilians died, and 150,000 were taken prisoner. Amid the carnage, Ashoka felt a profound change. The cries of widows and orphaned children echoed in his soul. Overcome with guilt, he asked himself, "What have I done?" This moment of awakening transformed him from a conqueror into a seeker of peace. Haunting memories of the war led Ashoka to Buddhism, where he found solace. Renouncing violence, he embraced the principles of Dhamma, righteousness, compassion, and nonviolence. Determined to rule with justice, he abolished the death penalty, built hospitals, schools, and public wells for his people. He banned animal sacrifices, advocated for wildlife protection, and spread compassion for all living beings. His transformation inspired his subjects, ushering in a golden age of prosperity and peace. To share his message, Ashoka erected monumental pillars and rock edicts across his empire, inscribed with his moral teachings, promoting ethical governance, respect for all religions, and social harmony. The lion capital of Ashoka at Sarnath, now India's national emblem, symbolizes his commitment to justice and righteousness. Ashoka sent Buddhist missionaries to Sri Lanka, Central Asia, Egypt, and Greece, supporting the construction of viharas and stupas like the Sanchi Stupa, which stands as a testament to his peace-driven reign. Under Ashoka's patronage, Buddhism flourished, spreading across Asia, shaping cultures and civilizations. His vision of moral governance and religious tolerance inspired generations of leaders, philosophers, and spiritual seekers. Ashoka ruled for over 40 years, transforming the Mauryan Empire into a prosperous and harmonious realm. His legacy is not measured by the lands he conquered, but by the hearts he touched. Ashoka the Great is remembered as the ruler who chose peace over power, compassion over conquest. His Dharmachakra became a symbol of justice and truth, inspiring generations to seek wisdom and righteousness. After his death, the Mauryan Empire gradually declined, but his message of peace endured. His legacy transcended time and borders, influencing spiritual and political leaders worldwide. As our journey through Ashoka's world ends, take one last look at the man who transformed from a fierce conqueror to a beacon of compassion. He once said, "The only true conquest is the conquest of the self." His legacy is not in monuments of stone, but in ideals of peace, justice, and love for all beings. Tonight, let the spirit of Ashoka the Great guide your dreams, filling them with compassion, wisdom, and the courage to choose peace. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders. Charlemagne, the father of Europe. Let us journey through the life and legacy of Charlemagne, the warrior king who united Western Europe and laid the foundations of the Holy Roman Empire. His story is one of courage, vision, and leadership, a tale of a ruler who dreamed of a united Christendom and whose influence shaped the future of Europe. Close your eyes and step into a world of knights, castles, and a legendary emperor who became the father of Europe. Charlemagne, or Charles the Great, was born in 747 AD, the son of Pepin the Short, king of the Franks. His lineage was one of power and prestige, descending from the mighty Merovingian dynasty. Yet little is known about his early years. In 768 AD, after his father's death, Charlemagne inherited the Frankish kingdom alongside his brother Carloman. But tensions between the brothers threatened to divide the realm. Fate intervened when Carloman died unexpectedly, leaving Charlemagne as the sole ruler of the Franks. With unparalleled ambition and determination, Charlemagne set out to expand his kingdom and restore the glory of the Roman Empire. It was the beginning of a reign that would change the course of history. Here's a more concise version of the text, keeping the core meaning and emotional impact intact. Charlemagne was a formidable military leader, known for his bravery, strategy, and relentless pursuit of victory. He expanded his kingdom into a vast empire, conquering the Lombards in Italy, securing his position as king of the Lombards, and bringing the papal states under his protection. He waged a 30-year war against the Saxons, determined to convert them to Christianity. It is culminating in the brutal massacre of Verdun, where thousands of Saxons were executed. Despite this, the Saxons eventually became loyal subjects. He also defeated the Avars in Central Europe, expanding his empire to the Danube, and launched campaigns in Spain against the Moors. His empire stretched across Western Europe from the Pyrenees to the Danube and from the North Sea to Italy. On Christmas Day, in 800, Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the Romans by Pope Leo III at St. Peter's Basilica, symbolizing the revival of the Western Roman Empire. This coronation established the Holy Roman Empire and solidified the alliance between the Frankish monarchy and the Catholic Church, shaping European politics and religion for centuries. Charlemagne's vision was not just of conquest, but of unity. He dreamed of a Christian empire where faith and knowledge flourished, binding his subjects under one God and one ruler. Charlemagne was also a visionary leader who valued education. He initiated the Carolingian Renaissance, reviving art, literature, and education in his empire. He invited scholars like Alcuin of York to his court at Aachen, transforming it into a center of learning. He established schools in monasteries and cathedrals, promoting the study of Latin literature and theology. Under his patronage, manuscripts were copied and preserved, safeguarding ancient knowledge. He reformed the writing system, introducing Carolingian minuscule, a clear and legible script that became the foundation of modern European writing. Charlemagne was also a just ruler who reformed the legal system, standardizing laws across his empire. He issued capitularies to govern justice, administration, and religious observance. He protected the poor and weak, enforced Christian morality, and promoted social welfare. He appointed local rulers, called counts, to administer justice, and sent royal envoys known as missi dominici to oversee governance. Here's a more concise version, keeping the key details and emotions intact. Charlemagne's reforms strengthened his empire's unity and stability, ensuring peace and prosperity for his people. His vision of governance was rooted in order, justice, and faith. He ruled for 46 years, transforming Western Europe into a powerful Christian empire. His legacy as the father of Europe endures, laying the foundations for modern European nations, influencing politics, religion, and culture. After his death in 814 AD, his empire was divided among his grandsons, leading to the formation of France, Germany, and Italy. Yet his vision of a united Christendom inspired future leaders, from the Holy Roman Emperors to Napoleon Bonaparte. His impact on education, the medieval world, shaped the medieval world and paved the way for the Renaissance. Charlemagne's name became legendary, celebrated in the Song of Roland. As we end our journey through Charlemagne's world, remember the man who united Europe and dreamed of a better world. Right action is better than knowledge, but to do what is right, we must know what is right, he said. His legacy lives on in the vision of unity, justice, and knowledge he inspired. Tonight, let his spirit guide your dreams, filling them with courage, wisdom, and a vision to change the world. Sweet dreams, traveler of historical wonders. Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen who ruled an empire. Let us journey through the life of Queen Elizabeth I, the monarch who defied expectations and led England into a golden age of prosperity, culture, and exploration. Her story is one of courage, intellect, and resilience, a woman who rose above political intrigue and personal danger to become one of history's most iconic rulers. Elizabeth Tudor was born on September 7, 1533, to King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. Her birth, a disappointment to her father, was followed by her mother's execution when Elizabeth was just 2 years old. Declared illegitimate, Elizabeth's future seemed uncertain. Despite her precarious position, Elizabeth was intelligent and well-educated. She studied Latin, Greek, French, and Italian under renowned tutors, mastering philosophy, history, and rhetoric. Her sharp mind and political instincts took shape, yet her life was full of danger. Her father married 4 more times. Her half-sister Mary became queen after their brother Edward VI died. Mary saw Elizabeth as a threat and imprisoned her in the Tower of London. Accused of treason, Elizabeth faced death but survived through courage, diplomacy, and patience. In 1558, Queen Mary died and Elizabeth became queen at 25. Her coronation was a grand spectacle, celebrated with joy and hope, but her rule faced immediate challenges. England was divided by religious conflict, facing financial ruin, and threatened by powerful enemies. Elizabeth navigated politics with remarkable skill. She established the Elizabethan religious settlement, unifying her kingdom by creating the Church of England, a compromise between Catholicism and Protestantism. Her decision to remain unmarried earned her the title the Virgin Queen. She famously declared, "I am married to England," choosing power and independence over alliances. Her reign became the Elizabethan era, a golden age of culture, exploration, and prosperity. In 1588, England faced the Spanish Armada, a powerful fleet sent by King Philip II of Spain to invade. Outnumbered and threatened, Elizabeth rallied her navy and people with a legendary speech. Dressed in armor, she told her troops at Tilbury, "I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king." Her words inspired valor. Through brilliant naval strategy and determination, the English fleet defeated the Armada, marking one of history's greatest military victories. The victory secured England's independence, established it as a naval power, and inspired national pride. Elizabeth's reign saw a cultural renaissance, the Elizabethan age of literature, art, and music. She was a great patron of the arts, supporting playwrights, poets, and musicians who created masterpieces shaping English culture. William Shakespeare emerged as the greatest playwright of the age, penning timeless works like Hamlet, Macbeth, and Romeo and Juliet. Christopher Marlowe and Edmund Spenser also flourished, enriching English literature with their poetic genius. Courtly dances, music, and elaborate pageants celebrated the grandeur of Elizabeth's reign. The Globe Theatre became a cultural hub, drawing audiences from all walks of life to experience the magic of drama. Elizabeth herself was an accomplished poet and musician, renowned for her wit, eloquence, and charm. Her court became a center of intellectual and artistic brilliance. Under her rule, England embarked on bold voyages of exploration, laying the foundations of the British Empire. She granted charters to explorers like Sir Francis Drake, the first Englishman to circumnavigate the globe, bringing wealth and glory to England. Sir Walter Raleigh established the first English colony in North America, naming it Virginia in honor of the Virgin Queen. Trade flourished, and England's influence spread across the seas, challenging the dominance of Spain and Portugal. These voyages expanded knowledge of the world, paving the way for future empires and global trade. Elizabeth ruled for 45 years, guiding England through religious turmoil, foreign threats, and economic challenges. Her leadership brought stability, prosperity, and cultural brilliance, marking the Elizabethan age as one of the greatest periods in English history. She died on March 24, 1603 at Richmond Palace, passing the throne to James VI of Scotland, uniting England and Scotland under one crown. Her death marked the end of the Tudor dynasty, but her legacy endured. She was remembered as Gloriana, the Virgin Queen who ruled with wisdom, strength, and grace. Her reign inspired poets and artists, and historians immortalized her in literature and legend. As our journey through Elizabeth's world ends, take one last look at the Queen who defied the odds and ruled with brilliance. She once said, "I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king." Her legacy lives on, not just in the empire she ruled, but in the spirit of courage, wisdom, and independence she inspired. Here's a more concise version of the text, maintaining its core meaning and emotional tone. Tonight, let the spirit of Queen Elizabeth guide your dreams, filling them with resilience, vision, and the courage to defy expectations. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders. Napoleon Bonaparte, the Emperor of Glory. Tonight, let's journey through the life of Napoleon Bonaparte, the military genius who rose from obscurity to become Emperor of the French, a tale of ambition, strategy, and destiny. Napoleon was born on August 15, 1769, on Corsica, shortly after it became French territory. His family of minor Italian nobility wasn't wealthy. From a young age, Napoleon was determined to rise above his humble beginnings. He excelled in mathematics, history, and military strategy at the Royal Military School in France. At 16, he became a second lieutenant in the artillery. Driven by ambition and intelligence, he had a disciplined will to succeed. When the French Revolution erupted, he saw chaos as an opportunity for greatness. His military career soared when he defended the revolutionary government during the Siege of Toulon in 1793. By 24, he was a brigadier general. He then led a daring campaign in Italy in 1796, defeating the Austrian forces and securing French control over northern Italy. Napoleon's soldiers adored him, calling him Le Petit Caporal for his courage and leadership. Returning to France as a hero, he launched the Egyptian campaign in 1798 to disrupt British trade routes. Though his fleet was destroyed by Admiral Nelson at the Battle of the Nile, he made significant scientific discoveries, including the Rosetta Stone, which unlocked the secrets of Egyptian hieroglyphs. France was in turmoil, plagued by political corruption and economic crisis. Sensing an opportunity, Napoleon staged a coup on 18th of Brumaire, November 9, 1799, overthrowing the Directory and establishing the consulate with himself as first consul. He declared, "I found the crown of France lying on the ground, and I picked it up with my sword." With his charismatic leadership, he restored order, stability, and prosperity to France. In 1804, he crowned himself Emperor of the French in a grand ceremony at Notre Dame Cathedral. Symbolizing his supremacy and independence from the Church, the age of Napoleon had begun. Napoleon embarked on a series of military campaigns known as the Napoleonic Wars. Expanding his empire across Europe, he defeated Austria and Russia at the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805, his most brilliant victory, earning the title Master of Europe. He crushed Prussia at the Battle of Jena and occupied Berlin. In 1807, he signed the Treaty of Tilsit with Tsar Alexander I of Russia, dividing Europe between them. His empire stretched from Spain to Poland, dominating the continent. He introduced the Napoleonic Code, a legal system that abolished feudal privileges and promoted civil rights, greatly influencing legal systems worldwide. However, his ambition led to the ill-fated Peninsular War in Spain and the disastrous Russian campaign of 1812. The harsh Russian winter and scorched earth tactics dead his grand army, marking the beginning of his decline. After retreating from Russia, Napoleon faced a coalition of European powers united against him. At the Battle of Leipzig in 1813, he was defeated and forced to abdicate in 1814. Exiled to Elba, he plotted his return. In 1815, he escaped Elba and marched back to Paris in the famed 100 Days, reclaiming his throne. But his comeback was short-lived. At the Battle of Waterloo, he faced the combined forces of Britain and Prussia. Defeated by the Duke of Wellington, his empire crumbled. He was exiled to St. Helena, a remote island in the South Atlantic, where he spent his final years reflecting on his legacy. On May 5, 1821, Napoleon died, reportedly whispering his last words, "France, Army, Head of the Army, Josephine." Napoleon's impact on history is unparalleled. He modernized France's administration, economy, and education. His Napoleonic Code became the foundation of legal systems across Europe and Latin America. His military tactics are still studied by generals today, inspiring leaders from Wellington to Eisenhower. His vision of a united Europe influenced the creation of the European Union. Yet his ambition led to devastating wars that left millions dead. He was both a hero and a conqueror, a visionary and a tyrant, a man whose complex legacy defies simple judgment. As our journey through Napoleon's world ends, take one last look at the man who dared to dream of empire. He once said, "Impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools." His legacy lies not just in the lands he conquered, but in the spirit of ambition and determination he inspired. Tonight, let Napoleon Bonaparte's spirit guide your dreams, filling them with courage, ambition, and the drive to shape your destiny. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders, and wisdom, a tale of a king who built an empire not just through strength, but through tolerance and diplomacy. Close your eyes and step into a world of golden palaces, vast deserts, and a ruler whose name became synonymous with greatness. Cyrus II, later known as Cyrus the Great, was born around 600 BC in the Persian heartland, now modern-day Iran. He was a member of the Achaemenid dynasty, the son of King Cambyses I, and the grandson of a powerful Median ruler. Legend says that before his birth, his grandfather, King Astyages of Media, had a terrifying dream that his grandson would one day overthrow him. To prevent this, he ordered the infant Cyrus to be killed. However, a kind-hearted herdsman secretly raised the child, and Cyrus grew up strong, intelligent, and fearless. As a young man, he proved his leadership. When the time came, he rose against his grandfather, uniting the Persian and Median people under his rule. It was the beginning of an empire that would change history. Cyrus was not just a warrior, but a brilliant strategist and diplomat. After uniting Persia and Media, he set his sights on expanding his dominion. His army was disciplined and innovative, employing tactical warfare and psychological strategies that gave him the edge over his enemies. His first major conquest was the Lydian kingdom in 546 BC, ruled by the wealthy King Croesus, famous for his immense riches. Despite Croesus's powerful army, Cyrus outmaneuvered him, capturing Sardis. Rather than executing Croesus, Cyrus spared him, showing mercy and wisdom. Next, he turned eastward, subduing vast territories across Central Asia, ensuring the security of his empire. But his greatest conquest yet to come. In 539 BC, Cyrus set his sights on the Babylonian Empire, ruled by King Nabonidus. The city of Babylon, one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, was believed to be impenetrable, surrounded by massive walls and the Euphrates River. Cyrus, however, was a master strategist. He diverted the Euphrates River, lowering its water levels so his army could enter through the riverbed. The city fell without a major battle. Instead of destruction, Cyrus declared himself not a conqueror, but a liberator. His rule was unlike any before him. He freed the enslaved Jewish people, allowing them to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple, an act recorded in the Bible and the Cyrus Cylinder, one of the first declarations of human rights in history. His respect for different cultures and religions set him apart as a ruler of wisdom and compassion. Cyrus's most enduring legacy is the Cyrus Cylinder, an ancient clay tablet inscribed with his proclamations. It details his policies of religious tolerance, freedom for enslaved peoples, and fair governance. Here's a more concise version of your text while keeping its meaning and emotional impact intact. Cyrus the Great, the king who respected all. Unlike other conquerors, Cyrus respected local customs and religions, allowing conquered peoples to retain their traditions. This legacy of tolerance and justice earned him admiration across generations. The United Nations recognizes the Cyrus Cylinder as an early symbol of human rights and governance. Cyrus expanded his empire until his final campaign against the Massagetae, a fierce nomadic tribe. Their queen, Tamiris, challenged him to battle, seeking vengeance for her son's death. A brutal battle ensued and Cyrus fell around 530 BC, either killed on the battlefield or dying from wounds sustained in combat. His name remains etched in history as one of the greatest rulers. Cyrus's tomb in Pasargadae is a sacred site, marking his enduring legacy. His Achaemenid empire became the largest the world had ever seen, stretching from the Indus River to the Aegean Sea. Successors like Darius the Great and Xerxes I carried on his vision, shaping history. His model of governance, tolerance, respect, and fair administration inspired leaders from Alexander the Great to the U.S. founding fathers. His ideas of religious freedom and human rights are still relevant today. The Persian people revere him as the father of Persia, and his rule marked the dawn of one of history's most influential empires. As our journey ends, remember the king who ruled with justice, strength, and wisdom. He once said, "I am Cyrus, king of the world." His legacy lives on in the ideals of fairness, unity, and tolerance. Let his spirit guide your dreams tonight, filling them with courage, wisdom, and justice. Sweet dreams, dear traveler. Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. Let's explore the life of Augustus, the man who transformed Rome from a crumbling republic into a mighty empire. His story is one of political brilliance, military strategy, and vision that shaped the Western world. Born Gaius Octavius in 63 BC into a relatively unremarkable Roman family, Augustus's fortunes changed when his great-uncle Julius Caesar adopted him as his son and heir. When Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC, the Republic was thrown into chaos. At just 18, Octavian stepped forward to claim his inheritance. Though few took him seriously at first, his cunning, patience, and determination soon made him a formidable force in Roman politics. Here's a more concise version while keeping the key events and emotional impact. To consolidate power, Octavian formed the Second Triumvirate with Mark Antony and Lepidus, hunting down Caesar's assassins Brutus and Cassius, and defeating them at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC. But the alliance soon crumbled. Tensions grew, especially as Antony became entangled with Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. Octavian turned Rome against Antony, portraying him as a traitor under Cleopatra's spell. In 31 BC, their rivalry led to the Battle of Actium, where Octavian's fleet, commanded by Agrippa, crushed Antony and Cleopatra's forces. Defeated, they fled to Egypt and took their own lives. With his rival gone, Octavian was the undisputed master of Rome. In 27 BC, he took the name Augustus, maintaining the illusion of the Republic while holding supreme power. The Senate granted him near limitless authority, making him Rome's first emperor. Under Augustus, Rome entered the Pax Romana, a period of peace and prosperity that lasted for over 200 years. He reformed the military, established a professional bureaucracy, improved infrastructure, and promoted the arts. "I found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble," he famously boasted. His architectural projects, including the Pantheon and the Areopagus, symbolized his lasting legacy. Augustus ruled for over 40 years, carefully managing his image as the first citizen, avoiding the fate of Julius Caesar, who was assassinated for seeking too much power. In 14 AD, Augustus passed away at 75. He was deified as Divus Augustus, forever worshipped as a god. His influence endured through every emperor that followed, shaping Rome for centuries. Even today, the month of August honors his name. As we conclude our journey, remember Augustus, the man who turned Rome into an empire. He once said, "Festina lente, make haste slowly." His patient, calculated rise to power ensured Rome's longevity, proving that true leadership is built on vision and determination. Let the spirit of Augustus guide your dreams tonight, filling them with wisdom and ambition and the courage to shape your own destiny. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders. Louis XIV, the Sun King. Let us journey through the life and legacy of Louis XIV, the monarch who reigned longer than any other European king and transformed France into a grand, powerful nation. His story is one of absolute power, lavish spectacle, and a vision that shaped the destiny of France. Close your eyes and step into a world of golden palaces, extravagant courts, and a ruler who called himself the Sun King. Louis XIV was born on September 5, 1638, to King Louis XIII and Anne of Austria. His birth was considered a miracle, as his parents had struggled for years to produce an heir. Because of this, he was called Dieudonné, God-given. At the age of 5 after his father's death, young Louis became King of France. However, true power rested with his mother and her chief minister, Cardinal Mazarin, who ruled as his regent. During his youth, France was embroiled in civil wars known as the Fronde, where rebellious nobles challenged royal authority. These early experiences taught Louis a crucial lesson: never let anyone threaten the power of the monarchy. When Cardinal Mazarin died in 1661, Louis XIV, at 22, took full control of the government. He stunned the court by declaring, "L'État, c'est moi," I am the state. From that moment, he ruled with absolute authority, centralizing power and weakening the influence of the nobility. To secure his control, he restructured France's administration, built a strong army, and promoted economic reforms through his minister Jean-Baptiste Colbert. He enforced religious unity, revoking the Edict of Nantes and forcing Protestants to convert or flee France. Louis believed his authority came from divine right, positioning himself as the Sun King, around whom all of France revolved. His court became the most magnificent in Europe, and his vision of grandeur shaped the very image of monarchy. To showcase his absolute power, Louis transformed a modest hunting lodge into the Grand Palace of Versailles, a symbol of France's prestige. It became the center of political and social life, with its magnificent hall of mirrors, sprawling gardens, and luxurious decor designed to impress and control the nobility. The court at Versailles was a spectacle of elaborate ceremonies, extravagant fashion, and intricate etiquette. Nobles vied for the king's favor, ensuring their loyalty and dependence on his goodwill. Versailles was not just a palace, it was a statement, an embodiment of Louis XIV's vision of absolute monarchy and France's supremacy in Europe. Louis XIV sought to expand France's borders and assert its dominance in Europe. His reign was marked by a series of wars, including the War of Devolution, the Franco-Dutch War, and the War of the Spanish Succession. Though France gained territories and demonstrated military prowess, constant warfare drained the economy and burdened the people. The Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 curtailed Louis XIV's ambitions, preventing the unification of France and Spain under one crown. Despite military setbacks, Louis established France as Europe's most powerful state, influencing diplomacy, culture, and warfare for generations. After ruling for 72 years, Louis XIV died on September 1, 1715, leaving behind an enduring legacy. His reign marked France's golden age, an era of immense cultural and artistic achievement. He supported artists, musicians, and playwrights like Molière, Racine, and Lully, elevating French culture to new heights. Louis's influence extended beyond politics. His model of absolute monarchy inspired rulers across Europe, from Peter the Great of Russia to Frederick the Great of Prussia. Yet his lavish spending, costly wars, and rigid rule laid the groundwork for future unrest. Less than a century later, France would experience revolution, challenging the monarchy he had glorified. As our journey through Louis XIV's world ends, remember the king who reigned with unmatched splendor. He once said, "Has God forgotten all I have done for him?" His name became synonymous with absolute power, his palace a testament to his grandeur, and his vision an indelible mark on history. Let the spirit of Louis XIV guide your dreams, filling them with ambition, elegance, and the pursuit of greatness. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders. Now for Henry VIII, the king who changed England forever. Step into the world of Henry VIII, the king who reshaped England's history. His reign was marked by power, ambition, and transformation, defying the Pope, founding a new church, and leaving a legacy of grandeur and controversy. Born on June 28, 1491, as the second son of Henry VII and Elizabeth of York, Henry was never meant to be king. But when his older brother Arthur died in 1502, Henry's destiny changed. Raised in an environment rich with learning, music, and physical training, Henry excelled in languages, theology, and philosophy. A skilled athlete, he became the epitome of a strong ruler, excelling in jousting, hunting, and tennis. At just 17, Henry was crowned King of England in 1509, marrying his brother's widow, Catherine of Aragon, to secure an alliance with Spain. Handsome, athletic, and intelligent, he was the ideal Renaissance king. His reign began with promise, but his thirst for power and desire for a male heir soon defined his rule. Frustrated by the lack of a son, Henry sought an annulment from the Pope. When Pope Clement VII refused, pressured by Catherine's nephew, Holy Roman Emperor Charles I, Henry became determined to take matters into his own hands. With the help of his chief advisor, Thomas Cromwell, Henry declared himself supreme head of the Church of England in 1534, breaking from the Catholic Church and sparking the English Reformation. This decision reshaped England's spiritual and political landscape, allowing Henry to marry again, dissolve monasteries, redistribute their wealth, and centralize religious authority under the monarchy. Henry's 6 marriages were crucial in his personal life and England's future. Each wife played a role in his quest for a male heir. Catherine of Aragon, divorced. Their 20-year marriage ended when Henry's obsession with having a son led to its annulment. Catherine died in obscurity after being exiled from court. Anne Boleyn, executed. Henry's second wife, ambitious and intelligent, failed to give him a son. She was executed in 1536 on charges of adultery, treason, and incest, leaving behind daughter Elizabeth. Jane Seymour died after childbirth. Henry's third wife gave him his long-awaited son, Edward VI, but died days after giving birth. Henry considered her his true wife and was later buried beside her. Anne of Cleves, divorced. This political marriage, arranged by Cromwell, ended after 6 months as Henry found her unattractive. She lived comfortably in England after their annulment. Catherine Howard, executed. Young and flirtatious, Catherine was executed for adultery in 1542, mirroring Anne Boleyn's fate. Catherine Parr survived. Henry's final wife, Catherine Parr, was wise and capable, helping reconcile Henry with his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth. She outlived him and later remarried. As Henry aged, his once athletic figure became bloated, his temper more unpredictable, and his paranoia grew. A leg injury from jousting left him in constant pain. He suffered from obesity and ulcers, making his final years difficult. Despite declining health, he ruled with absolute authority, crushing rebellions and enforcing religious reforms. His lavish spending, fueled by wealth from dissolved monasteries, led to economic instability. Henry died on January 28, 1547, at 55. His son Edward VI succeeded him but reigned briefly. After Edward's death, Mary ruled briefly before Elizabeth took the throne, beginning England's Golden Age. Henry VIII's reign changed England forever. His break with the Catholic Church, dissolution of monasteries, and establishment of the Church of England had lasting religious and political effects. His creation of a powerful navy laid the foundation for England's maritime dominance. His reign left mixed views. Admired as a patron of the arts, scholar, and strong leader, yet seen as a cruel and excessive tyrant. Though he failed to secure stable succession, his daughter Elizabeth I became one of England's greatest monarchs, proving his legacy extended beyond his reign. As our journey through Henry VIII's world ends, remember the king who redefined monarchy. He said, "I see my end is coming, yet I am satisfied, for I have done my duty." His reign was one of triumph and turmoil, leaving a lasting mark on history. Tonight, let Henry VIII's spirit guide your dreams, filled with ambition, resilience, and echoes of a changed world. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of history. Peter the Great, the Tsar who transformed Russia. Let us journey through the life and legacy of Peter the Great, the visionary ruler who dragged Russia into the modern world. His story is one of ambition, reform, and relentless determination. A tale of a man who reshaped his country, built a grand new capital, and turned Russia into a formidable empire. Close your eyes and step into a world of grand palaces, naval conquests, and the unstoppable will of a Tsar who refused to accept stagnation. Peter was born in 1672 to Tsar Alexis I and his second wife, Natalia Narishkina. A curious and energetic child, his early years were marked by political turmoil. When his father died, Peter's half-brother, Fyodor III, took the throne. But Fyodor's weak health led to a power struggle between two rival factions, Peter's family, the Narishkins, and his half-sister Sophia, who was supported by the Miloslavsky faction. After Fyodor's death, Sophia seized power as regent, ruling for young Peter and his frail half-brother Ivanvith. However, Peter's mother and supporters bided their time. In 1689, Peter overthrew Sophia and assumed full control. At just 17 years old, he became the undisputed ruler of Russia. Unlike previous Russian rulers, Peter had a deep fascination with European advancements. Determined to modernize his country, he embarked on the Grand Embassy, a 2-year journey across Western Europe, visiting the Netherlands, England, and Austria. He studied shipbuilding, military tactics, and European customs, bringing back knowledge that would forever change Russia. Upon his return, Peter enacted sweeping reforms. He modernized the army, introducing European tactics and weapons. He built Russia's first navy, recognizing the importance of naval power. He forced the nobility, the boyars, to adopt Western dress, even personally cutting their long beards to enforce his new policies. He revamped the Russian government, reducing the power of the traditional nobility and creating a merit-based system. He also reformed the Orthodox Church, bringing it under state control. Peter's reforms were radical and often met with resistance, but his iron will ensured they were carried out. He was willing to crush opposition ruthlessly to push Russia forward. Here's a more concise version of the text, preserving its core message and emotional tone. One of Peter the Great's greatest ambitions was to give Russia access to the Baltic Sea, enabling trade and expansion. This led to the Great Northern War, 1700 to 1721, against Sweden, then a dominant European power. Despite early setbacks, Peter reorganized his forces and in 1709 at the Battle of Poltava decisively crushed the Swedish army, marking a turning point. The Treaty of Nystad in 1721 granted Russia vast Baltic territories, securing its status as a major European power. To mark this, Peter took the title Emperor of all Russia, transforming his realm into a true empire. Peter founded St. Petersburg in 1703 on the marshy Neva River, building the city with forced labor. It became a symbol of his vision, designed to rival the great cities of Europe. In 1712, he made it the capital, shifting power away from Moscow. His drive for modernization was relentless but often brutal. He suppressed revolts, crushed the boyars' independence, and demanded absolute loyalty. His son Alexei, who opposed his reforms, was arrested, tortured, and died in captivity, possibly by Peter's order. Despite his harsh methods, Peter's vision for Russia never wavered. He worked tirelessly, personally inspecting projects, learning trades, and pushing Russia toward greatness. He died in 1725, likely due to a bladder infection after rescuing sailors from a freezing river. Peter expanded Russia's borders, revolutionized the military, transformed the government, and introduced Western ideals, shaping Russia into a global power. St. Petersburg remains a lasting testament to his vision. Though he ruled with an iron fist, Peter's impact on Russia was undeniable. He turned a medieval kingdom into a European powerhouse, setting the stage for centuries of Russian dominance. As he once said, "I have conquered an empire, but I have not been able to conquer myself." Tonight, let the spirit of Peter the Great guide your dreams, filling them with ambition, resilience, and the courage to embrace change. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders. In a controversial chapter of Israel's history, Sheba had been the wife of Uriah before David's intervention. Despite this, Solomon was chosen as David's heir, bypassing his older brothers. As King David's health declined, a power struggle ensued. His son Adonijah attempted to seize the throne, but with the support of the prophet Nathan and Solomon's mother, David declared Solomon his rightful successor. In a grand ceremony, Solomon was anointed king, securing his place as ruler of Israel. Shortly after ascending to the throne, Solomon had a dream in which God appeared to him, offering to grant him anything he desired. Instead of asking for wealth or power, Solomon humbly requested wisdom to govern his people justly. Pleased with his selflessness, God granted Solomon unparalleled wisdom, along with riches and honor beyond compare. His intelligence became legendary, attracting rulers and scholars from distant lands to seek his counsel. One of his most famous judgments involved two women who both claimed to be the mother of the same baby. In a test of true maternal love, Solomon suggested cutting the child in two, knowing that the real mother would rather give up her child than see him harmed. The wisdom of his verdict solidified his reputation as a just and discerning ruler. One of Solomon's greatest achievements was the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem, fulfilling his father David's dream of building a permanent home for the Ark of the Covenant. The magnificent temple, adorned with gold, cedarwood, and sacred carvings, was designed to honor God and unite the people of Israel. The project took 7 years to complete, with materials sourced from across the known world, including Lebanon's famed cedars and vast quantities of gold and precious stones. The temple became the spiritual heart of Israel, a place of pilgrimage and divine worship for generations. Under Solomon's reign, Israel reached new heights of prosperity, becoming a center of trade and diplomacy. His vast wealth enabled grand architectural projects, and his influence extended across the ancient world. One of the most famous episodes of his reign was the visit of the Queen of Sheba, a mysterious ruler from a distant land, possibly Ethiopia or Arabia. Intrigued by tales of his wisdom, she brought rich gifts of spices, gold, and jewels to test his intelligence. After witnessing his wisdom firsthand and marveling at the splendor of his court, she declared that Solomon's greatness exceeded even the rumors she had heard. Their meeting became a symbol of knowledge, diplomacy, and the exchange of cultures. Despite his legendary wisdom, Solomon's later years were marked by excess and spiritual decline. He took hundreds of wives and concubines, many from foreign nations who worshipped different gods. Under their influence, Solomon allowed the construction of temples to pagan deities, straying from his devotion to God. As a consequence, God foretold that Solomon's kingdom would be divided after his death. Though Israel remained prosperous during his lifetime, internal strife loomed, and resentment grew among his people. Solomon reigned for 40 years, but upon his death, his empire fractured. His son Rehoboam inherited the throne, but his harsh rule led to rebellion, splitting the kingdom into Israel in the north and Judah in the south. Though his kingdom fractured, Solomon's legacy endured. He is credited with writing much of the Book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Poetic Song of Solomon, works that continue to inspire and guide people today. His temple, though later destroyed, remained a symbol of faith and devotion. The wisdom attributed to him became a model for just leadership, and his name remains synonymous with insight, judgment, and understanding. The story of Solomon reminds us that wisdom is the greatest treasure of all, but even the wisest among us must guard against the temptations of power and wealth. As our journey through Solomon's world ends, take one last look at the king who sought wisdom above all else. He once said, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." His reign was one of splendor and enlightenment, but also a cautionary tale of excess and human fallibility. Tonight, let King Solomon's spirit guide your dreams, filling them with wisdom, understanding, and the pursuit of a just heart. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders. Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt. Let us journey through the life and legend of Cleopatra Tsit, the last pharaoh of Egypt and one of the most fascinating figures in history. Her story is one of intelligence, power, and romance, a tale of a queen who captivated two of Rome's greatest leaders and fought to preserve her kingdom. Here's a more concise version of your text, preserving its meaning and emotional impact. Cleopatra, the queen who defied the odds. Close your eyes and step into a world of gilded palaces, secret political dealings, and a woman who defied the odds to make her mark on history. Cleopatra was born in 69 BC to the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family ruling Egypt since Alexander the Great's time. Unlike most of her ancestors, she embraced Egyptian culture and even learned the native language, a rarity among Greek rulers. Her father, Ptolemy the Eleventh, was unpopular. Upon his death, Cleopatra ascended the throne at 18, ruling alongside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. However, palace intrigue soon forced Cleopatra into exile, but she was not easily defeated. In 48 BC, when Julius Caesar, Rome's most powerful general, arrived in Egypt, Cleopatra saw her chance. Desperate for his support, that she had herself smuggled into his chambers, rolled up in a carpet. Her intelligence, charm, and political acumen won Caesar over. With his backing, she defeated her brother's forces, and Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile while trying to flee. Cleopatra was restored as queen, ruling alongside her youngest brother, Ptolemy XIV. Cleopatra and Caesar became lovers, and in 47 BC, she gave birth to their son, Caesarion, Little Caesar. She traveled to Rome, strengthening her alliance with Caesar. However, after Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, Cleopatra returned to Egypt, knowing her protector was gone and the future uncertain. With Rome in civil war, two men emerged: Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, and Mark Antony, Caesar's trusted general. Cleopatra allied herself with Antony, meeting him in 41 BC under legendary circumstances. She sailed to meet him on a magnificent barge dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, enchanting him from the moment they met. Their relationship was political as much as romantic. Cleopatra needed Antony's support to maintain Egypt's independence, and he needed her wealth to fund his campaigns. Together, they became one of the most powerful couples in the ancient world, having 3 children and forming an alliance that threatened Rome. Here's a more concise version while keeping the essence and emotional impact. Cleopatra envisioned an empire where Egypt and Rome could rule together, restoring the power of the East. But in Rome, Octavian saw them as a threat. He launched a propaganda campaign, painting Cleopatra as a manipulative seductress who sought to undermine Rome. The rivalry escalated into war. In 31 BC, at the Battle of Actium, Octavian's forces overwhelmed Antony and Cleopatra's fleet. Defeated, they fled to Egypt, where Antony, believing Cleopatra was dead, took his own life. When she found him dying, she held him in her arms as he passed. Octavian marched into Egypt, determined to capture Cleopatra and parade her through Rome. Rather than suffer such humiliation, Cleopatra chose death. She allegedly had an asp smuggled into her chamber, allowing it to bite her. She died on August 12, 30 BC, at the age of 39. With her death, Egypt fell under Roman control, marking the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the last independent reign of ancient Egypt. Cleopatra's legacy is one of power, intelligence, and resilience. She was more than a seductress or pawn. She was a brilliant politician, linguist, and a woman who commanded respect in a male-dominated world. Her story endures in art, literature, and film, symbolizing femininity, strength, and political cunning. Though her empire fell, her legend lives on, whispering through the sands of Egypt, in Alexandria's ruins, and in the hearts of those who dream of power, love, and destiny. As we conclude our journey, remember Cleopatra's words, "I will not be triumphed over." Her reign was one of seduction, strategy, love, and war, but above all, an unbreakable will. Let the spirit of Cleopatra guide your dreams tonight, filling them with ambition, courage, and the fire of a queen who refused to be forgotten. The life and legacy of Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor whose wisdom and stoicism shaped the ages, led a life defined by leadership, philosophy, and inner strength. His story is that of a ruler who governed with reason, justice, and a relentless pursuit of virtue. Close your eyes and step into a world of marble palaces, fierce battles, and the mind of a man who sought peace in a turbulent world. Marcus Aurelius was born in 121 AD in Rome into a wealthy and influential family. From a young age, he displayed a profound interest in learning and philosophy. He was adopted by his uncle, Emperor Antoninus Pius, who groomed him to be his successor. Raised in the imperial court, Marcus was educated by the finest tutors in literature, rhetoric, law, and, most importantly, Stoic philosophy. Under the guidance of Junius Rusticus, he became deeply committed to the Stoic ideals of reason, duty, and self-control, principles that would later define his reign. Unlike other princes raised in luxury, Marcus was humble, disciplined, and introspective. He wore plain clothing, slept on a simple bed, and embraced the Stoic practice of finding contentment through virtue and wisdom. His deep reflections and philosophical pursuits were evident even in his youth, earning him the nickname Verissimus, the most truthful one. In 161 AD, upon the death of Antoninus Pius, Marcus Aurelius ascended to the throne, sharing power with his adopted brother, Lucius Verus. It was the first time in Roman history that two emperors ruled jointly, symbolizing unity and stability. Despite their contrasting personalities, Marcus being serious and philosophical, while Lucius was more hedonistic and carefree, they maintained a harmonious co-rule. Marcus handled governance and legal matters, while Lucius led military campaigns in the east. Their reign was soon tested by a series of calamities. The Parthian War broke out in the east, threatening Rome's eastern provinces. A devastating plague brought back by returning soldiers swept through the empire, killing thousands. Germanic tribes launched invasions along the northern frontiers, challenging Rome's defenses. Through these crises, Marcus demonstrated remarkable resilience and leadership, maintaining stability and unity in the empire. Unlike emperors who sought glory and conquest, Marcus ruled with justice, humility, and reason. He believed in leading by example, showing compassion even to his enemies. His meditations are a testament to his Stoic beliefs, emphasizing acceptance of fate and nature's order, the importance of self-discipline and inner peace, the pursuit of virtue and wisdom above material wealth, and the recognition of the impermanence of life and fame. He wrote these reflections during military campaigns, often intense and along the battlefield, reminding himself to remain steadfast, calm, and rational regardless of external chaos. His writings were deeply personal, never meant for publication, making them a rare glimpse into the mind of a philosopher king. For much of his reign, Marcus was consumed by the Marcomannic Wars, a series of brutal conflicts along the northern frontiers of the empire. The Germanic tribes, sensing Roman weakness due to the plague, launched invasions that threatened Italy itself. Despite his philosophical nature, Marcus proved to be a capable military leader. He reorganized the army, personally led his troops, and secured several hard-fought victories. The wars were long and grueling, testing his endurance and resolve. Amidst the battles, he continued his philosophical reflections, finding solace in Stoic teachings. He reminded himself that suffering was part of life's natural order, and that true strength lay in mastering one's emotions. The conflicts also inspired his vision of a united empire. He began integrating defeated tribes into Roman society, offering them land in exchange for loyalty, thus maintaining peace through diplomacy and inclusion. In 180 AD, while still campaigning along the Danube, Marcus Aurelius fell ill. On his deathbed, he summoned his son Commodus and advised him on ruling with virtue and wisdom, but Marcus feared his son lacked the character to lead wisely. On March 17, 180 AD, Marcus Aurelius passed away. His death marked the end of the Pax Romana, a long period of peace and prosperity for the Roman Empire. His soldiers mourned him deeply, for he was not just their emperor, but a wise and just leader. His son Commodus inherited the throne, but his corrupt rule led to political turmoil, ushering in the decline of the Roman Empire. Yet Marcus's legacy endured through his writings and his example as the ideal philosopher king. Marcus Aurelius's meditations remain a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, influencing leaders, scholars, and thinkers throughout history. His teachings on virtue, reason, and acceptance continue to inspire those seeking strength and wisdom in the face of adversity. He is remembered as the last of the five good emperors, a ruler who balanced power with humility, war with wisdom, and authority with introspection. His life exemplifies the Stoic ideal of a just, rational, and virtuous existence. Even today, his words resonate with timeless truths, guiding readers on the journey to inner peace and self-mastery. As our journey through Marcus Aurelius's world comes to an end, take one last look at the emperor who ruled with wisdom and humility. He once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." His reign was one of courage and contemplation, of power tempered by philosophy. Tonight, let the spirit of Marcus Aurelius guide your dreams, filling them with strength, wisdom, and the pursuit of virtue. Sweet dreams, dear traveler of historical wonders.